Welcome to my channel, Heinz57. I don't know what it's going to be yet, and as you can already probably tell, this is my first video. I've been trying to get into this kind of critiquing, narrative, review style videos for a while. I've been inspired by a lot of the people on YouTube, some of which I might mention in this video. But today, I needed to start somewhere, and I've been racking my brain on where to start. And I needed to start with a franchise that not only that I loved, but I could talk about for an hour and a half if I needed to. I'm not saying that this video is that long, but if I needed to. I'm going to start with Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed is a franchise I've been in love with for a great portion of my childhood and now still playing each title into my 20s. And probably going to play them well into my 30s. I don't know. I wanted to start with the most controversial one, or at least in my opinion, the most controversial one. The one that sparks so many arguments outside of the new RPG elements and the new ones and all these other things. In my opinion, it's the one that turned and changed it all. I want to start with Assassin's Creed Unity. Unity has been described by many fans in many different ways, but the best word I can use to describe it is upside down. Let me explain. Assassin's Creed Unity, for me, was the game in a beloved franchise that changed it forever in a lot of ways, trying so hard to keep up with modern trends, but still trying to be something in line with the series. It wanted to be new and old all at the same time, and it kind of fell on its face in some areas and picked itself up really well in others. Unity has so many back and forth moments. Throughout this video, I think I'm going to confuse people, maybe even myself. The video claims that I really love this game, but when I talk about its flaws, it's going to sound like, did this guy even enjoy playing this game? Unity will constantly be the best and worst game in the Assassin's Creed franchise. I'm exaggerating, of course, but I personally loved playing it and was able to look past its many glaring flaws. Yet, for its sequel, I couldn't do the same. Syndicate was terrible to me, and maybe someday I'll do a video on it, but so many fans have the same arguments for why it's better than Unity, and yet I don't think otherwise. For this video, I'd like to start with what's bad with the game. I think it's better to build a game up from its flaws so you can kind of look past them while playing it and then get to the good stuff at the end so your mind is on a positive note and you end on that positive note. Might as well build a review from the ground up. So let's start with the flaws. All right, let's start with the obvious con that everybody talks about in Assassin's Creed Unity. The elephant in the room. The bugs. I'm not oblivious to the technical problems that Unity has. I am, however, able to overlook these problems a little more than most people. It depends on how picky you are. I will be the 1,000th person on YouTube to talk about this point and even say what I'm about to say, but there's a reason those of us that actually like the game say this. Unity had bugs on launch, but honestly, Unity is not as buggy as people remember. But yes, of course, still has bugs. What game doesn't? I guess I started this topic about more of a positive than a negative, but I do sympathize with those who actually had bugs, issues with the game. How, you might ask? Well, I had them too. Unity was a game that stopped me from playing the franchise for probably almost a year. I didn't want to go back and touch the old ones because it felt ruined to me. When I bought it for the PS4, it was terrible on launch. I was one of the few that had the bugs. But as I've gotten older and I've replayed the game, I've talked to a lot of people and seen a lot of comments, and the bugs weren't as prevalent as people think they were. I'm sure there are people out there like me that can go, yeah, right, dude, this game is buggy. But it didn't have it for a lot of people and somehow got stapled as the buggy Assassin's Creed game, the one that didn't stay in the oven. I was incredibly excited as a big fan of the franchise, and then it kind of shit the bed. It had a ton of bugs and issues and frame drops, and being one of the few that had the skeleton face on Arno, I was not sold. I was done with Assassin's Creed for a little bit. When bugs are involved, it's really hard to stay immersed within the game's world. Unity will always be labeled as the bun that should have stayed in the oven a little longer. Wait, did that sound right? I don't know. Either way, the bugs will always be the biggest issue that Unity has always been talked about. But I promise you, if you haven't played the game in a long time, or if you haven't played the game at all for that matter and you're watching this video, I highly recommend you go play it. I played mine on PC and it ran just fine. I mean, don't get me wrong, it had a bug every now and then with sometimes I would kill an enemy and it would flop around all over the floor and it was kind of funny, but I was able to look past that. With the patches and stuff that's come out over the years, it's done a great job of re-envisioning itself, and it's not as buggy as people remember. But since I'm talking about the cons, it did have bugs on launch. It is the reason that Assassin's Creed went in a completely different direction after the fact. So it can't be overlooked. And for those of you that don't like the game because of its bugs, I can kind of get that because I was you. But I'm telling you right now, go back and give it another shot, especially if you're a major Assassin's Creed fan. Now we've come to the protagonist, Arno Dorian. As much as I like Arno as a character, he has one very, very big flaw. He's a simp. The man is way too whipped for his own good and stays clouded by his acts for revenge way too much within the story. Yes, I'm aware that this is supposed to be leading him to his growth as a character, but it lasts literally the entire game. Elise is constantly and obviously using her charm and love for Arno as a weapon to get what she wants. Look, the Romeo and Juliet thing isn't the worst idea, considering the entire franchise is split between these two quote-unquote families, Assassin, Templar, Montague, Capulet, however you want to look at it. But when Arno completely abandons the ideas of the Assassin Brotherhood and the Creed, the thing that he dedicated the rest of his life to protecting and being a part of, kind of gets in the way a little bit. Arno deserved to be kicked out of the Brotherhood. It was clear that he was utilizing it for his own personal gain and to seek revenge. He claims in the game that it was for redemption, but it is clear to the Council of Assassins that he is immature and lacks the composure to continue on with the Brotherhood. Arno's flaws, for some fans, took away the things that were actually great about him. And for that, he's in line as just another assassin. Arno started out so charismatic and so fun and charming, very similar to that of Ezio. Hell, he even kind of looks like a French Ezio. But slowly over time, the story beats you down as the player into thinking that Arno's just, oh, I love Elise, therefore I must save her. Arno takes the entire game to grow and literally only moves on after because of Elise's death. Arno joins the Brotherhood with selfish motives, and that's very clear. And it takes way too long for the story to shift the mindset and grow him as a character. Unfortunately, this is why Arno could have been the best assassin, but has become a very middle character in the Assassin's Creed franchise. My next big pet peeve with this game is something I and many other fans consider to be wasted opportunity with the lack of a sequel for Unity. I know technically that isn't a flaw for this game specifically, but I kind of believe it is. Let me explain. Arno's flaws towards his character development at the end of Unity could easily be overlooked and be more of an elongated story piece if we had more time with him. We missed an amazing opportunity to redeem any bad quality that Arno had, aside from the good things that he built in the Dead Kings DLC. AC Unity left with an amazing opportunity for the Assassin's Creed franchise. Does anybody else realize that 3 assassins are alive during the end of the Dead Kings DLC timeline? And not to mention, a little Shay Cormac still kicking it with the Templars, just waiting to get a hidden revenge blade from Arno to the throat. I know the idea of Arno, Connor, and Aveline being together in a game is not my original thought. I'm not the only one that thought of it. Several YouTubers have presented the idea. Most notably, one that inspired me to make a channel was a YouTuber, Master Assassin. He does a video called Assassin's Creed Vengeance, the ultimate AC game. Please go check it out. He lays out a story and a narrative that is incredibly impressive, and I would kill for that game to be made. But the idea of having all 3 assassins together could redeem both Arno and Connor's bad qualities and the reasons that people didn't like them in the franchise to begin with. Character development. Both of these characters deserve to have their good qualities exaggerated and tested so they can develop and take away why fans dislike them in the first place. The reason we love Ezio so much is we had years of opportunity to develop with him. We see him from his birth in Assassin's Creed 2 to his death, and he has all the opportunity to redeem himself and build up on those great qualities. He gets older, but the charm never dies, even if he gains more maturity and more responsibility becoming a master assassin. Arno deserves to have his character build and for him to have a satisfying ending, but all we're left with is his amazing speech at the end of the game, which I'll touch on more later. Lastly, to touch up on the flaws, I kind of want to just talk about little tiny details that bug me throughout the game. First off, while fighting enemies, anyone who pulls out a gun is immediately going to land a shot on you, at least 95% of the time. When you're in the middle of a fight and you see the little red gun flash above the head of people, you're screwed, man. Just be ready to take a health potion because they're going to shoot the crap out of you, and it's incredibly annoying. Also, they are amazing shots when you're trying to run away and climb buildings. And I know people are going to be like, just get better at the verticality. I get that. You're not wrong. I have gotten better. But it is still annoying that these guys can close both of their eyes and hit a penny from a mile away. It's freaking ridiculous. Next, this kind of might ruin the story for people. And sometimes I wonder if it should ruin the story for me. I don't know. But when Arno is exiled from the Paris Brotherhood, he gets to keep his stuff. This is literally why the game can continue and the story can move on. And as much as I back this game up, it cannot be overlooked. And it bugs the crap out of me that, like, you would think that a brotherhood of elite and amazing assassins with an entire established government that has lasted, I don't know, a couple thousand years or so would think, maybe we should take the robes, knives, hidden blades, smoke bombs, phantom darts, berserk darts, and poisonous gas away from the highly trained individual killing machine that we've been training the last few years. You know, since we ruined his life, kicked him out of the last known family he had, which was us, and we know that he's friends. He's actually in love with this Templar. You know, the order that we swore our entire existence to protect from people for the greater good of mankind. Should we? No? We're gonna let him keep the stuff? Okay, alright, that's fine. Yeah, that bugs the crap out of me. Like, you play these sections of the game where Arno gets sloshed drunk after being exiled, and he just walks out and drunkenly, hangoverly, eagle visions, finds people because he's looking for his watch or whatever, and he kills a bunch of people and gets into a fight with a bar and kills people in the bar. Like, I know this is revolutionary France, but dude, somebody would have stopped this guy. I don't know. It could ruin the whole story. I hope it doesn't, but that part bugged me. Next, we have the map is a cluster, you know what. Okay? For heaven's sake, Ubisoft, there's a reason you're known for this, and it doesn't get any better with future games of the series or any other game that Ubisoft makes, for that matter. I don't need 12,000 chests to just mindlessly hunt around for, especially in Unity where I have the Café Theatre literally giving me like 50,000 every 15 minutes or so. It's completely pointless. I stopped hunting for chests. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I haven't even 100%ed Assassin's Creed Unity ever because it's just way too much. It's just way too much. A small but notable flaw. Can we get an Assassin's Creed game without a complete revenge plot over the death of a loved one? Yeah, that's all. I'm just kind of done with that. Also, one that it's kind of a story flaw. The Sword of Eden is kind of just a random piece at the beginning and the end of the story. I know it's more important to the modern day plot in Unity, but let's be real, the modern day plot in Unity is garbage. I didn't even want to put it in the flaws because it's kind of just redundant to talk about at this point. But, you know, the assassins are out to find pieces of Eden too, and they just kind of don't talk about it at all. And my last, and I think most important flaw, is Bellic's outfit does not have a hood. And I'm not just talking about when we get to wear it as the player. I'm talking about when Bellic is wearing it. The dude claims to be all Levantine assassin status, and yet doesn't have a hood. I'm just throwing that out there. Anyways, but that's it for the flaws. Let's continue to the reason I made this video, the pros. For the first pro I want to touch on, it's more of like a personal passion for the franchise, I guess. Unity, in my eyes, was the last true time we saw a well-placed and thought-out brotherhood of assassins who are there to stop the ruling of the Templars. One thing I appreciated was how this version of both the Templars and the assassins had this truce in place at the beginning of the game. This was the first time in the series we had seen both sides develop an understanding of each other, almost, and try to somewhat establish peace. I know different games in the past have touched on each side, but this time felt to me like both sides were really trying to bring themselves together and end a several thousand years war. Granted, the Templars have to be evil and kill their own master and ruin the entire idea because bad guys have to bad guy. I mean, the assassins, of course, want peace through free will and no control, while the Templars desire order to maintain peace through that control. Without these elements, I guess we wouldn't really have a game franchise, but the idea of them at least trying was pretty cool to me. Coming back to the part where Arno is exiled from the Brotherhood, this is the first time since Revelations where we see the structure of the Brotherhood outside of just assassinating targets. They have a bureau, it's underground, the bureau is full of scrolls, and the symbol of assassins is plastered all over the walls and even ingrained into the concrete. I love the aesthetic of the bureau in Unity. It's one of my favorite bureaus in the entire franchise. Each assassin has a unique look to them that's appropriate to the time period, and it's easy to tell that the council acts as more of like a supervisory role now, as opposed to being in the field themselves. They're all aged, no longer wear their hoods, aside from ceremony, and some don't even look like they have their hidden blades. They act as more of like generals, moving each piece of the puzzle in the right direction to end the war against the Templars. I mean, the decision to exile Arno makes complete sense. Arno clearly uses his weapons and teachings of the assassins for his personal gain, as I discussed in the cons list. I mean, the kid brought a Templar to the Bureau blindfolded, kind of a rookie move. The council actually seems to be well thought out and mature, and not just here to mess around. It's the first time I felt in the series that you aren't that important to the overall cause that the assassins are trying to achieve. For a brief moment in the story, you realize you're not there to watch the story of the assassins and the Templars. You're watching Arno's story, specifically. The Brotherhood, although flawed, is structured, and I wish we could come back to that in the franchise. I know people are going to say Syndicate had a Brotherhood in place, but it didn't feel the same. I don't know. This one felt more like it was actually trying to be hidden from the rest of the world. It almost felt like a cult. Which, now that I think about it, kind of is a cult. Damn it, franchise. Fucking stupid. Golly. After looking up the definition of a cult, I feel a little better. So long as we don't think of the creed as a religious piece, and I guess they didn't really worship the Isu and the ones who came before, so I think we're okay. Let's move on. The next pro is the mechanics, something that Unity actually uses as its gain throughout the entire game. Most fans love Unity because of its mechanics. And I know this is all about personal preference, but I actually really enjoyed Unity's combat mechanics. It took a moment to get used to not winning a fight just because I tapped the parry button and then right away followed it with the attack button. But I did enjoy it. I never hated Assassin's Creed combat like some, but to say it wasn't repetitive would be a downright lie. The old combat relied solely on what you've probably heard 1,000 times, intrinsic motivation, meaning the moves looked cool, therefore you wanted to rinse and repeat. I guess rinsing and repeating for like 6 games does definitely get old. Unity's combat is not as flashy as the rest of the series before it, and I'll admit I kind of wish it was a little bit, but it definitely was more challenging, and it didn't feel like enemies were just sword sponges taking all the hits. The new RPG trilogy had the issue of feeling like enemies are almost invincible. The combat is at a quicker pace, but suffers a tiny bit of realism. I know describing real elements of these games, or any video game for that matter, can sound redundant, but the old Assassin's Creed games at least made you feel like you were this Billy badass and you were just better than everyone. Arno, on the other hand, is slow and methodical. You can parry all you want, but unless you get behind an enemy or break the defense of an enemy, you aren't going to win the fight. The combat is similar to the older combat in Assassin's Creed 1, where you had to have precise decisions in your movement. And if you really want to have a challenge, you can turn off the HUD and the overhead markers to keep the yellow light from flashing, causing you to actually pay attention to the movement of the enemies about to strike you, as opposed to just, where does that yellow flash? I know to hit the parry button. My favorite aspect of the combat is when the enemies joined the fight. It actually felt overwhelming and encouraged me to run and get some verticality and hide like an assassin would, utilizing my smoke bombs and the parkour system to get away from large groups of enemies. Next, I'm gonna say it. The parkour is the best in the series. Why the hell Ubisoft abandoned this parkour system after one game is beyond me. I think it's one of the closest to being a perfect traversal system behind games like Spider-Man PS4 and the Batman Arkham games. Not only does it beautifully make you look flashy and cool, it's incredibly practical. Ubisoft brought all the mechanics back, like side ejects and back ejects, and allowed it to flow very nicely into the parkour down system that they had created for the time. The game doesn't teach you the system very well at all, but once it's learned, you can run around the rooftops like it's a freaking Red Bull Art of Motion show. That's a parkour competition. I was super into parkour when I was in high school. I used to do it. Don't judge. Proof that this system works, though, go check out a YouTuber called Altair Stealth. This dude makes it look easy, and it is jaw-dropping how well he incorporates it with the stealth mechanics. This parkour system is the best this series has ever been, in my opinion, and it's sad that it's gone. It was a one-hit wonder. And no, Syndicate doesn't have the same parkour system. Not being able to jump off a roof at will and having a Batman-style grappling hook is just, it's not good parkour, or at least Assassin's Creed parkour. If you like it, I'm sorry, maybe I'm just jealous. I wish I was okay with it, but I'm not. You're allowed to like Syndicate, by the way. I just don't, and I feel like I've been talking a bunch of smack. Feel free to talk crap in the comments. I don't care. Next, AC Unity has one element that I think even people who don't like the game necessarily can agree, and is that it looks amazing, both in visuals and its animations. The one-to-one recreation of Paris is absolutely breathtaking and does a great job of making the environment look like it's going through a revolution. The large amount of NPCs and trash-filled streets become great obstacles and cover as you play as an assassin in your playground. The buildings are handcrafted and historically accurate, which make it amazing to run through. On top of being the art piece that it is, I believe Unity has the best animations to help motivate the player into more creativity. Hands down, the hidden blade animations are the best the series has ever seen, and mix that with the smoke bombs and the phantom blades and berserk darts and all these tools that give style to your kill, and you have some amazing visuals. I guess you have what I would consider as the cool and flashy Assassin's Creed game. I know not everyone is into aesthetics like I am, but the outfits and the gear and the legacy outfits look great on Arno as he navigates his way through his targets. Like the story or hate it, the game is an art piece and deserves the respect of that work. Animators drew these pieces from their own historical research and their own imaginations. The work into this game and games as a whole has to be respected, because it's the most prestigious form of entertainment and art, in my opinion. Bringing a world to life is not easy, and they did a great job of doing so in this game. A quick touch on something that I really enjoyed was this game introducing the black box style missions into its campaign. Allowing players to have options on how to assassinate their target was an awesome choice, and it felt like it wasn't too overwhelming either. This gives players an opportunity to have some replay value in the game and is a nice way to present a challenge to the player. The mission structure was actually one of Syndicate's better qualities. I know I was talking smack about it the whole game. Finally, here's a pro for Syndicate. But I wish it could have been used more in future entries, and each mission feels like it can be done how I, the player, want it to be done. So that's just something that I really enjoyed with Unity. Ubisoft, if we could bring that back, that'd be pretty cool. A big pro in this game was Arno's speech about the Creed at the end of the main story. It's one of my favorites. The AC franchise is full of great speeches from Ezio to Bayek, but Arno's speech has a great amount of weight to it, considering he needed to lose everything in his life, including the Brotherhood, to realize it wasn't about him. Vengeance and revenge are key themes throughout this game, and yes, I agree it's a story trope that is overused and could change, but it is always a strong motive to start a life of being the good guy. Pretty much every major superhero wants to do good because evil has happened to them in their own lives. They are driven by pain and want revenge, and once revenge is gone, it is replaced with empathy. They want to ensure those who have felt the same pain receive justice for the wrongs done to them, and also to ensure nobody else feels the pain they went through. Characters like Spider-Man, Batman, and even Captain America are all motivated through their personal vengeance. Captain America simply thought bullies needed to be taught a lesson. I mean, that's still revenge in my book. Arno's speech brings him full circle and shows his character progressing in a way we didn't see for the rest of the game. The speech redefined the Creed for me and gave it more meaning. Allowing Arno to learn its true meaning was the biggest character development the game has to offer, and I found it to be peaceful. Arno tells it softly in a calm voice, but its words echo the tragedies he's faced in his short lifetime. Something we forget a lot is we are playing as a 23-year-old man. 23 is not a child, but it is the beginning of true adulthood. It almost makes sense how Arno reacted through the story because he realized, oh, he's just a kid. Look, I'm not that far ahead of 23, but in your 20s, you learn so many things each year as you progress in your life and find out who you are. Arno learns the hard way and touches the hot stove and gets burned. He learns not to be clouded by love and stay focused on the bigger picture beyond his selfish motives. I love how Arno ended in Unity despite not having a sequel to change the flaws that we had already discussed. Arno becomes an assassin and an adult in this story, and his speech reflects it very nicely. The last little piece of the story I surprisingly enjoyed was these letters you can read from Elise after little sections of the story. It definitely shows more of the love for each other that was lacking in the narrative throughout the main campaign, especially the final letter after Arno's speech. She states if Arno is reading it, she is dead and has died for her cause, which is literally what happens at the end of the game. The letters emphasize how Arno needs to grow up and fight for a reason other than himself. Elise doesn't like that Arno joined the assassins. Obviously, she's a Templar, but at least wants him to stick to his guns and believe in a cause. She states she's afraid that Arno won't deliver the killing blow on Jean-Main because he would try to quote-unquote save her. She even gives him some tough love and states she doesn't need to be saving, and Arno should never have thought of her that way. These letters are fun to listen to and spread out throughout the game, and actually made me appreciate Elise as a character a little more. The puppy love they had for each other throughout the game is a little more matured after it has more context through these letters. It could have been more, and the writing could have been better, but I enjoyed this piece nonetheless.
Another king, a council of capable men. That is the question, isn't it?
I am nowhere near the first person to make a review of an Assassin's Creed game, let alone Unity. But I really needed to start my channel somewhere, and I figured, why not a franchise that I love, and also during its 15-year anniversary? I hopped on the bandwagon, I know that. But this game is divisive and controversial for a reason. I am on the side of the coin that thinks the game is actually really good and has things that are the best of the franchise. It is not my favorite Assassin's Creed by any means, but it definitely is the turning point for the franchise. This game is the reason, I believe, we are in this broken version of the series today. This game starts a conversation, and if this is the first review you've heard, I highly encourage that you go see other YouTubers that do a great job describing it as well, and give you their opinion. The hard part about Unity is, if you say it's a bad game for such and such a reason, I'll probably say, yep, the game does do that, and that stinks. But for some reason, I like it. I don't know. Assassin's Creed is becoming a crazy divided fan base, and it is fun to go back at these older games and start a conversation about why which one is better than the other. I myself miss the old formula and think that it's the reason I like Unity more than most. Unity felt like it was trying to be what the first Assassin's Creed was trying to be. It kept the ideology alive and brought back the brotherhood. Arno's lack of a sequel is one of the most unfortunately missed opportunities in the series, and I feel like there is still hope for older characters in the future. Even if Basim is the next in line for a sequel, I'll at least be happy that Ubisoft is ready to try and expand on a character for the first time since Ezio. These games are a strong part of my childhood and influence me to do things in real life as well. Now, no, I didn't mean like I joined a cult of assassins and went on a killing spree or anything like that. Obviously, I just was one of those kids at lunch doing parkour off of benches because I thought it was cool. Anyway, in conclusion, if you watch this video, even if it's for a moment, thank you. I appreciate it. I look forward to reviewing more games in the future, and I'm going to be looking at each game I decide to review with a different perspective, through a different lens, if you will. After doing so with Unity, it made me appreciate the game even more, while also looking at why people dislike it. This video was a ton of fun to make, and actually made me feel a little bit like I was living the fantasy of this is my career. It's just a hobby for now, but I'm glad I pulled the trigger on it. Follow me on Twitter, subscribe to my YouTube if you want, and give me the opportunity to make more of these reviews. Leave your own opinions in the comments, and I'd love to have a discussion. I think it's a ton of fun. I hope those I shouted out in this video get to hear me, and I really want to say thank you. You guys inspired me to do these videos myself, and I've been wanting to do it for a long time, and after binge watching your videos, I finally did it. For now, that's all for this video. In the meantime, cheers.
Yes,